Supergirl episode 16, Falling. I really thought this was a great episode. Not only do we get Hero Car at the beginning of the episode, which I think was one of my favorite moments of the series, honestly, and it was such a small thing, but when Kara helped out that little girl that was getting bullied, that was one of my favorite things, because she swoops down and she's like, I think you look great and stuff, and she sees her name when she uses X-ray vision, and then it's like, yeah, I'm friends with all the nice kids, and then she takes off. I was like, that is a true hero moment for anyone. I think that's a cool superhero moment to take time, do really, really little stuff, and like change a kid's life or change a kid's day and stuff like that. Ultimately, of course, it it switches because of the episode. But that was an awesome moment when I saw. I was like, that is a true hero moment. That was actually really cool to me. But we get that. We get the introduction of red kryptonite, which is very cool, and we have it where Maxwell Lord is the one that ends up making it. He's made synthetic red kryptonite, or synthetic kryptonite in general is what he was doing, and he ends up making red kryptonite. And so I love the fact that they introduced red kryptonite because it means that they are going to get into possibly blue kryptonite. They kind of do that already a little bit with the different levels, like when they do training between Kara and Alex. They do that where it's like the levels turn up and then Kara's basically just human. So they could do blue kryptonite if they wanted to, and then it would just be officially, they have it. It's like, poof, she's human, and that's because that's what that does for anyone who doesn't know that. So it kind of introduces the idea that they're going to get into kind of deep Kryptonian stuff, and I guess that's not really that deep, but you can have a ton of Superman stuff and Supergirl stuff, and then just like not even bother with the other kryptonite. So it was nice to see that they were doing it so early on. And of course, when I saw it, I was like, oh, that makes me think of like Smallville and stuff. And I think they didn't do it for like a couple of seasons. I think they didn't do like the other kryptonite until like season 4 or something crazy like that. So very awesome that they're doing it so early on. It's like, here's red kryptonite. I don't know if it's like that in the comics where it was made by someone trying to replicate actual kryptonite, or if it's just from a different part of Krypton, because there is, like I said, there's green, of course, which is just like regular fragments, but there's red and there's blue, and I believe there are actually some other colors as well, like almost like Green Lantern cores or something. But I thought it was really cool that they introduced that. Of course, that leads us to Evil Car, which was very cool in this episode, and her just doing certain things, and she takes out the other woman who is the secretary number 1. I still don't remember her name. It's something. It's like a weird name, and I just can't remember this. It's something, because I remember they actually said, I was like, I'm gonna try to remember that, and I just can't think of the pronunciation. But I can think of how it's spelled. It's like Sibboah, but it sounds like there's a T in there or something like that. I can't remember, but she gets rid of her. She like completely destroys her too, and I thought, like, man, she took her down. She's coming in dressing super fancy and stuff, which personally I didn't think it was super fancy when she put on that first dress, and everyone's like looking, and it's like, holy crap. I'm like, it's just a dress that has like some lines in it. Like the other girl was wearing like the I think it was the that scene when she got fired. She had like a black, white, and blue dress. It was like a piece of art. And I'm like, well, Carr basically had that in the beginning of the episode, and it was just like lines. I'm like, it's not that fancy. It's totally fancy for her because she basically wore sweaters. So it was like a million degrees different from what she was normally wearing. But I'm like, it's not that fancy. But I guess, when someone normally comes in like sweaters and with a button-down t-shirt up, or button-down shirt underneath a sweater, I guess I could see why people would, look, because it's such a huge difference. But I like what they did with kind of the dark side of Kara, and she said certain things like that she felt, like when they're at the club, and she finally talks to James in not the best way ever, of course, because she was doing it in sort of the evil sense, and she's like grabbing his arm and stuff, and like, don't walk away from me, and he's like, dang, like my shoulder, she's about to rip my shoulder out. So that happens, and even when she tries to fix it, he he has to tell, like, don't finish that sentence, because after seeing like the evil side of her and how she has that within her, it's kind of changed where he kind of sits on his feelings. So I thought that was actually an interesting way to keep that going, because now it's officially out there, and sadly it's come after such a devastating moment. Like, it was done in the worst way possible. So now that it's finally out there, like, I really do like you, and you like me, it's like, nope, like don't actually say it. I just need time to think, because now I've seen sort of the darker side of you, and it's not you normally, but it's there. Like, it wouldn't have happened in any form if it wasn't there in some form, even if it's minute. So I love that they did that. I thought that was actually a cool way to do it, where it keeps them separated still, but actually in an entertaining way. It wasn't just like they like each other but they don't know. Now it's out there, and it's just in sort of a weird, like, devastating sort of way. So I like the way that they did that. Wynn and the woman, they apparently, based on the trailer, they will be talking in the next episode, and we'll see, how all that stuff plays out. And I don't know how long she's supposed to be in the series or anything like that, but we'll see where that goes. If she, sticks around, she obviously won't be going to the Daily Planet, because they already kind of talked about that. Cat's like, I had a long conversation with Perry. I believe this was maybe like his third mention out of all these episodes. I think this was like the third, maybe fourth time he was mentioned. So, cool little mention for Perry White at the Daily Planet. But she won't be going there. She's not headed to Metropolis for like a new amazing job. So she could easily be around for quite a while. I doubt she'll end up working again for Kat, because of the way things ended. I highly doubt she'd hire her back. So I'm not sure how they're going to keep her in the series, because at some point she would need a job to survive. So I don't know how that's really going to play out, but I'm actually a little bit curious, because they kind of ended it, so it's not like, oh, they're, kind of doing their thing and they're together while she's, fighting against Kara. She's destroyed. Kara completely squashed that, so she's out of there. And we'll, see how long she stays in the series. But that, I actually didn't hate. I thought that was a great scene when Kara took her down. I was like, man, she destroyed her. But it was still really awesome. Probably my favorite part, though, had to be the ending of this episode, which I figured was going to happen. Because when they did the promo, or not the promo, but the recap, where it's like, oh, these are, basically, it's like, here are characters that were here in other episodes, and here are things that were said in other episodes, because they will have some sort of relevance right now. Whenever they do that, you can tell what is and is not going to happen. So they showed the woman from the White Martian episode. I was like, okay, odds are she's going to be in this episode, because they're showing her, which that's exactly what happens. And then they have this, the last thing that they showed during the recap is Hank saying, I can't be a part of the DEO if I'm Martian Manhunter. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure he's going to end up outing himself somehow in this episode. And they did it in the best way they possibly could have, where he actually has to save Alex and fight Supergirl, which I thought was a great fight. Sadly, it was actually pretty short. I was hoping it was going to be way longer, but it was actually very awesome that it was so short, because he destroyed her during that fight. And I was like, that's exactly what should happen, because he could take on Superman if he wanted to, because that's how strong the Martian Manhunter is. So during that fight, like, he changes and he saves Alex and tackles Kara into the car. And then, she basically, flies him straight up the building. It was almost straight out of Man of Steel, or pretty much any superhero movie, really. If someone can fly in that super strength, there's always one scene where they just go straight up a building. So I guess I shouldn't specifically set that to Superman, which actually reminds me of a very specific scene that was straight from the old Superman movies. And of course I'll get back to the fight, but when Kara was at the bar, and she had the peanuts, and she's flicking the peanuts. For anyone who saw that and didn't know that that was from an old Superman movie, it is. I believe, I want to say it's from the very last one. I think the fourth one, The Quest for Peace. And during that, he fights some dude. I can't really remember the name of the character whatsoever. But basically, something happens to him, and he turns evil. So it was just like this. It wasn't red kryptonite. It was something else. But he turns evil, and there's a scene where he's got, like, 5 o'clock shadow, and he's just looking mad and, like, a little bit bummy. And so he goes to, like, this random, like, old timey looking bar. It was like just some random town, and he went to a bar, and he does the peanut thing. He has the peanuts, and he flips them upside down. I think it was almost shot for shot the exact scene. Obviously, totally different bar, but I think the way that they had Kara, like, flip the peanuts and everything was almost exactly the same. And I think the only difference is that there was a mirror there, and they only did it where she was breaking the bottles. But when she was sitting there, I'm like, it would be pretty cool if they did the Superman thing. And as soon as I said that, she's, like, lifting the thing up, because I thought it was just, like, some stupid fancy looking cup. I was like, I'm assuming it's just some fancy cup. And then she lifts it up and a bunch of peanuts drop. I was like, that is super cool that they're doing it. It was so silly to me, but I love that scene. So for anyone who saw that and didn't remember or didn't know in general, because you never saw that scene from the old movies, that's what that's from. It's either, I'm pretty sure it's from the final movie. I'm pretty sure it's from the fourth one, but that was awesome. Like, as soon as those peanuts dropped, I was like, yes, they're doing the peanuts thing, which was just really silly. And like I said, for anyone who didn't know, that probably was like the dumbest scene ever, but I loved it because I knew that it was, referencing the old movie. And it was the perfect time because it was the same thing as, Kara being evil, and that was Clark being evil at the time. So I was so happy to see that in there because I didn't think about it until as soon as she was at the bar. I was like, it'd be awesome if they did the peanut scene. And then she's flicking peanuts at beer bottles and stuff, or liquor bottles. I was like, that's very awesome that they do that in there. So certainly enjoyed that. But back to the epic fight scene. Loved the fight. I thought it was really cool. He completely destroyed her. The one scene where they were in the air, I honestly couldn't even tell what was happening. I was just enjoying it. I'm like, I'm pretty sure he's teleporting as he's punching her, but he was doing it so fast. I'm like, I can't tell if he's punching her and teleporting, or if, well, I guess he can't teleport, so I guess he was punching her and then flying through her to do it. But he can fly so fast it looked like he was teleporting. I wasn't even thinking that's not one of his powers. But I'm guessing he was punching her and then like phasing through her. So like he'd punch her and then shoot like however far and then shoot right back and just like like snapping a finger. He was super fast. I was like, I can't even tell exactly what he's doing especially because it was at the top down angle. Because the way they do it is we see him kind of glow red when he activates his powers. So I was like, I can't tell how he's doing that right now, but I'm assuming that's what it was. He was like phasing through her. But all I could see was like red for like 1 second, and then she's punched, and then red over this side and that side. And I was like, I can't tell, but it looks super cool. I was like, I know he's hitting her, so that's all I need. I was like, this is super awesome. And then he like did like maybe 2 or 3 more hits, and then he like slammed her with both his fists, and he took her down. Like she hit the ground, and she was done for. Like she stood up, of course, but that was it. I was like, that was a great fight. As short as it was super awesome. Excuse me. It was super awesome because I felt like, with it being Martian Manhunter, even though they've shown that they're kind of limiting his abilities because, of course, if it wasn't an issue where it's like, oh, he could change into his Martian form and then change back, like in 2 snaps, then he'd be insanely overpowered. So they showed that, he can't go all out because that has an effect on him and stuff like that. But in this, it was like, nope, he had to save lives, and he at least went all out as far as flying and phasing. He at least did that and was in his normal form, so it made it a little bit easier as well. But I loved that fight. That was really good. I don't know where they're going to be taking it. I mean, now he's captured, but he mentions, of course, he didn't take off because that would allow for him to protect Kara and Alex. But I don't know. Either Alex is going to end up taking over as the director, or whatever they actually called his position, or there's going to be a new character in the show. And I would assume, with it being this secret organization, that it would be Alex that takes over, but that's only because they made it seem as if this is the only location on the planet for the DEO. But I'm sure there have to be other factions out there. There have to be other locations with people that have probably been in the organization longer, who just weren't in leader positions, and so we might get a new character. And I think that would actually be pretty cool. It'd be interesting to see because, of course, that would allow for a huge tonal shift as far as the DEO side of the series. So either way, I'm excited to see how they do it because even if it is Alex that takes over, I'd love to see how that plays out. And now she would need her own second in command and stuff like that. But I feel like they'll bring in someone new because then it would be an actual huge shift in tone. Because if Alex took over, it would basically be the same thing. It would just be someone else under her, and she'd be making all the rules. But if it was a brand new person, they'd be like, all right, we're changing everything, so it would be such a different part of the show. But we'd still have Hank, and we'd still have Alex, and we'd still have Kara as a part of this unit, even though, of course, Hank would be locked up in the glass case, which I don't know if he could get out of that. I'm pretty sure he could phase through that because they don't know what powers he has. It's not like they could really see what was happening. They flew up in the air. They know he can fly and has super strength, but it's like, oh, we'll put you in this thing. I'm pretty sure he could just be like, well, I'm just going to walk out of this if he wanted to. But he'll stick around, I guess, until he feels like he's the only one that can protect the girl. So it'll be interesting to see how they keep him in the series now that he's going to be locked up, and what they can and can't say. Because I would assume that at this point, no one knows that Alex knew, or that Kara knew either. So they're gonna have to keep that a secret. I'm guessing based on them openly talking at the end of this episode and pretty much every other episode, they have 0 cameras in those rooms. I think they showed it one time that they did, but then they have stuff like this, and it's like they're just talking like, whatever. We're just, I knew it was happening. Why didn't you take off? And that was it. But I certainly love this episode. I think it was a really good one. A very good introduction to a lot of cool things. We got the red kryptonite. Very interesting Maxwell Lord in this episode as well, because he mentions like, oh, I didn't mean for it to end up this way, and he was actually helping. Really weird plan, because he does, like, they kind of call him out as soon as he says it's like, so you started that fire, or even not the fire, because he mentions that was an accident, but sabotaging the satellite was like, okay, so you did that in case Non would show up and not Supergirl, and it's like, yeah, that was kind of pretty much how he put it. He says like, I didn't really work out like I planned. It's like, but they left like the galaxy seemingly, and Supergirl's right in the town, so it's just like, it's a little, when he says that, it's like, that kind of doesn't make any sense. Like, why would they possibly show up before she would show up? If you did anything that would attract Kryptonians, she would definitely be there first. Like, it just, he said like, oh, I didn't plan it right or this or that, but I'm like, no, I feel like that's a really, really easy thing to calculate. Like, she would show up before anyone else, because if they, once they come back, we'll know they're back, because it's a bunch of freaking supervillains, so there's no questioning who would have shown up first. But he was trying to be nice, I guess. But I'm definitely looking forward to how she tries to correct things, because that is the focus of the next episode. I'm really glad it is, because it would have sucked if they just kind of skipped over and it was like, oh, a villain's the main thing, and then she defeats the villain, and everyone's like, all right. So, and I'm sure there will be. It won't just be Kara, trying to convince everyone. But I'm definitely excited to see how she kind of fixed her reputation. I think actually, yes, the episode after next is our Flash Supergirl crossover. So very excited for that. We only got 2 weeks to wait, so that's actually very, very cool. There's some pictures up online now if you guys want to check them out. They just recently got released, I think today, technically yesterday by the time this ends up uploading. But I'm going to wait, and I'm just going to see, because I don't want to know which characters are actually going to come over from Flash into the show. But I'm assuming it's more than just Barry, but I guess it could be. Even if it was just Barry, that is enough. But I'm pretty sure it's going to be more, based on how the team dynamics work for all the DC shows, or at least, the CW shows and Supergirl, because obviously Gotham is totally different realm. But based on how those shows work, I'm assuming it'll be more than just Barry. We might get to see at least Cisco or Caitlin. I feel like it would have to be Barry and one of them. Maybe Iris, because of her job as a reporter, but I don't know. It depends on, I don't know what the story's really going to be about yet, so we'll just have to wait and see. But we're only 2 weeks away from that, so very excited to see that take place. Can't wait for them to do that, and then do a million other crossovers with Supergirl, and then we'll have, 2 superheroes in one show, like actual, superhuman superheroes. Not that I don't like Oliver, of course, but still, really awesome. But definitely a fun episode. Definitely want to know what you guys thought about this one. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And I want to know what elements of the DC universe you guys want to see come into the show next. Because, we have, it's the DC universe. There's a ton of stuff. Some of the easy things would be like, other characters. But aside from just characters, what elements? We have Earth 2 for Flash. So they could, if they wanted to, which I don't think they will, because they're doing that in Flash. They aren't going to just be like, hey, Earth 2, poof, now it's in Supergirl as well. Unless they wanted to do that for the next season, maybe. But there's a ton of stuff in the DC universe. I'd love to see the other kryptonites come into play. I think if Maxwell Lord kind of mastered his idea of red kryptonite, and then he made the blue kryptonite, and if there are other colors, whatever those may or may not be, I'd like to see those if there are any. But I would love to just see some of the sort of space type elements, I think would be great for Supergirl, because we already have that with it being Supergirl, but we don't have a lot. Like, they reference Lobo a little bit. I believe that was in the last episode or the one before that. But I would love to see Lobo if they had a character that was like, I wasn't imprisoned in Fort Ross, or I'm not from Krypton or around it. I'm just doing my own thing, and then I came to Earth. Kind of like the White Martian a little bit, although that was specifically for Hank. I would love to see that, like a character that is known for like coming from space and going to a bunch of different planets. I'd like to see that, even though that's obviously a character, not just a random element, but something like that, like something more space based, which we don't have a lot of from our DC shows. We have it a little bit. We got in like one episode of Legends of Tomorrow, so they kind of touched on it like the tiniest bit. But I think Supergirl is like the perfect show to do that, because she could go into space if she wanted to. They haven't done that yet, where she's done the thing where she flies up and like looks at the planet and stuff. I feel like they might be saving that for a scene, but I feel like that's gonna have to show up somewhere. I feel like that has to show up. But I want to know what elements you guys want from the DC universe. I guess you might as well include characters if you want. I know I'd asked that before, that's why I didn't want to include characters, but it is hard not to, because there's just so many. Some, of course, we can't have because of like the Justice League stuff they're doing for the movie, so we won't actually get Superman outside of that shot. We might get more shots like that, but we won't really get much of just here's Superman, unless they do an amazing deal and Henry Cavill just ends up on one of the episodes like, yep, there's Superman and Supergirl are in this episode together, which would be awesome. But certain characters we might not get, unfortunately, but I definitely want to know, characters or just other elements of the universe, which ones you guys want to see, and of course, what you guys thought about this episode. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.